know that you're all close to the end of your days, hopefully. So hopefully this will be a nice lighthearted session towards the end of your day to take you out. So my name is Tori. I am a libraries fellow at NC State University Libraries, and that is a position that's open to newly graduated LAS students. I've been a fellow now for going on 2 years. So I've been able to see the Innovation Studio through its some of its early conception stages and through the process of getting this new learning and teaching program up and running. So it's been a really great, interesting project to be a part of, and I'm looking forward to talking to you about what we've been engaging with in terms of teaching and learning over the past couple of years and what we hope to do in the future. But with that, I will turn it over to Calvin to introduce himself.
I've moved up the chain. I'm usually third. Hi, everybody. I'm Calvin Olson. I am going to be a third-year PhD student in the Communication, Rhetoric, and Digital Media program at NC State. I've been part of the Innovation Studio team since January of last year. I have a creative writing background. I'm really interested in futures thinking, especially in fiction. Afrofuturism is my personal favorite right now. And I will leave some stuff for Jamie to say from there.
Thank you, Calvin. Yes, my name is Jamie Haar. I am a very soon to be graduate of the CRDM program, where I work with medieval documents and digital humanities. So I do that. I work in the Innovation Studio, and I noticed a couple people, I think, from Wake Tech. I also am an assistant professor of English over at Wake Tech Community College. So kind of spread around the triangle, but I'm very happy to be a part of this workshop and to kind of show you what we're doing at the NC State Libraries.
So as we've mentioned, we are part of the Innovation Studio team. So the Innovation Studio is a new space for the libraries. It was part of a renovation project that started pre-pandemic and then was scheduled to open basically, during the fall semester when things were still on lockdown. So one of our main challenges has been thinking through how to launch a new space in the midst of all of that. And the space really is twofold in its goals. So there is the space, of course, where we showcase innovation. We have an exhibits platform that is intended to showcase student work, faculty work, to demonstrate some emerging technologies and to combine the digital and the physical in a hands-on interactive way. But we're going to talk to you a little bit more today about teaching innovation and what that has looked like for us. So when this space was being conceptualized, that was the idea is, okay, we want to somehow teach innovation. And so our challenge over the past 2 years has been figuring out, what does that mean? What does that look like? And what we've settled on, as you'll see today, is a slate of futures thinking workshops. And we've been able to take that into many different types of courses across many different disciplines, as well as campus groups. And we also plan to host special events and talks, more so when we're back in person very soon. And I did want to play this video for you from Relative Scale, the external design firm that we worked with for the exhibits platform, just so you can get a sense of the space. Yeah, so hopefully that gives you a good sense of what the exhibits platform looks like and what the space itself looks like. And again, all of that can be turned off as well and converted into a teaching space. And we're excited to get in there and do some of these workshops that we're going to talk about today in person, hopefully soon. But with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jamie to talk a little bit about what Futures Thinking is and how we've been using it in the space.
All right, thank you. Kind of going to go through this, some of these slides as if we're kind of the same way that we would approach our students in a workshop. So one of the first things we do when we introduce futures thinking is we put this question up here and we kind of ask, what do you think futures thinking is? Usually this is because the workshop is geared toward futures thinking and students are signing up for, we assume, because they want to learn more about it. But often there are preconceived notions. So getting an idea of what they think it is about. There are some words that we kind of expect that we kind of push back on that we'll talk a little bit about in a couple slides. But so as I talk about this, I want you to just take a moment and kind of think what you think a futurist does. It's a bit of abstract nature to the whole concept, but kind of keep that in your mind of what you think that is. So let's go to the first slide, or I guess fifth slide. And so some of the ways that we look at futures thinking at the Innovation Studio at NC State is that, and I'll just read these just because I think they're perfectly worded. And it's an interdisciplinary method for considering different versions of what the future might look like. And this is really, really important. One of the initiatives that, well, one of the primary initiatives that NC State pushes is to kind of pull all of our disciplines together, pull our colleges together, have us work together, and think outside of our individual programs. We certainly do have interdisciplinary programs like the Communication, Rhetoric, and Digital Media program, where Calvin and I are, but beyond that, they really want us kind of thinking how we can interact with other students and other faculty in the university community. So futures thinking works very well with that mindset. And it's also a set of tools and approaches that you can use to prepare for a variety of possible futures to help you realize the most desirable of those futures and guard against the not so great ones. So it's very anticipatory. It's a strategy. It's not an answer. It's a way to think through all of the possible tangents that all the possible outcomes possibly of a situation or of innovation, a technology, a decision. And so from there, you can kind of prepare best case and worst case scenarios as you think forward. So just some examples of what futures thinking is. I pulled a couple of slides. There's quite a few that we could talk about in terms of topics, but these ones that I chose I think are pretty relevant to this group. So first of all, technology obviously is very, very important when you're thinking about the future. So if we go back in time, we can look at how inventions like the television or the microwave or even the smartphone has changed the way that we behave and the way that we interact with one another. So a technology trying to anticipate ethics and consequences of a new product is very, very important when they are applying futures thinking and thinking as a futurist. And so will their tech be good for humanity in the long run, or will it do harm to society in hard to predict ways? So thinking about all of those possibilities, and I'll get to this a bit more as we move forward, but futures thinking is very community centered. It's not about the individual, it's about how our decisions affect society and affect the community. So a technology company definitely needs to consider what the outcomes of a technological invention or an innovation would have on society. So the next slide, please. Obviously, many of us are working in academic settings. So universities planning for new courses and degrees to teach new work sets or skills and new skills to students is very important. For example, NC State, we are starting in July, we're opening the Data Science Academy, which is their motto is that data science is for everyone. So it's not just the statistics department, it's not just the engineers trying to push the data science initiative across the campus. And this was before a big decision like Apple coming to the Triangle that wanted to push data science in the Triangle became a reality. So I think this is an excellent example of how this new academy and this new program at NC State anticipated, maybe not in our backyard, but anticipated the almost immediate need for data science to be a part of the NC State students' curriculum. So thinking about what might be important in a couple of years. Futures thinking often is like, we tend to think maybe in 10-year increments. I think that's a reasonable amount of time. So for something like a university planning, 10 and 20-year strategies, that kind of fits that model. And then of course, you know, it's not just about numbers, it's not just about data analytics, it's art also is very important in what might be useful in the future. So the art students, the design students at NC State, for example, you know, they're thinking about how their art will impact future generations and how it'll affect future, the community in the future. So it's not just limited to again, analytics. It's not just trying to strategize about how, you know, marketing will be impacted by a certain product. It's also the creative aspect, which I think is very important when we're talking about innovation. And so when you're thinking about your life, you know, and this is probably more applicable to students who are just trying to figure out what they're going to do with themselves after they get out of NC State. But I think it's very, very you know, impactful for most of us. Is what are the decisions that we make? How do the decisions that we make affect future society? So we can use future thinking in our daily lives as we make decisions. So excellent. So let's just talk quickly about one of the primary. Oh, sorry, go back one, Tori. Oh. This is very key. Oh, there we are. Crystal ball one.
There we go.
All right, perfect. So this is absolute key for futures thinking, is that it's not about. Hold on, I'm just going to mute that person. Okay, futures thinking is not about predicting the future. It's, you know, we like to think that maybe this is a way to, I mean, we're not trying to guess the lottery numbers, right? We're not trying to guess, you know, when we're going to die or anything like that. It's about this speculative approach to what possible outcomes could transpire. So that's very, very important to think about. So the 5 things that you want to think, you want to incorporate when you're thinking like a futurist. First of all, like I said, you forget about predictions. It's not about predictions. You want to focus on signals. So technology is a great way to think about signals. What innovations in technology impact society, and what could those impacts be? So it could be a signal, it could be trends, it could be fashion, anything that kind of stands out that looks like it could affect the way that that behavior is modified is very important to think about. And then you want to look back to look forward. You want to look at past trends to anticipate what could happen in the future. So right now we're living in a wonderful example, not wonderful, we're living in an example that could mirror, that certainly does mirror 1918, the Spanish flu pandemic. So what happened afterwards? How did they recover comparing 1918 to 2021? What are we doing that's similar to the past, and how can our responses to COVID-19 better, you know, kind of adjust to what occurred at the beginning of the 20th century? So again, using the past as a guide, and then by doing that, we uncover patterns. So, you know, we can see peaks and valleys in behavioral models that we can look and directly apply to what's going forward. And again, returning to this concept of community, we create a community based off of these decisions or based off of these observations. And how do these decisions affect our a larger group outside of our immediate selves or immediate families. It's a bigger, more macro picture than maybe we're used to thinking about. So it's a very unselfish approach to the future, which is, I think, quite fantastic. So the is this my last slide? Yes. So the benefits of futures thinking that we kind of push for students is that there is that creativity, that you have to be creative when you're thinking about the future, because we don't know what the future holds. So thinking about different variables and all of that. Empathy is absolutely important. Again, going back to that idea of community. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's about us, right? So that empathetic approach. It's very easy to be pessimistic when we're thinking about the future and we're thinking about our own, I think about my family, whatever, what is this world going to be like for my children and my children's children? It's very easy to get into a more of a pessimistic, dystopic point of view. But futures thinking tries to get away from those, that dynamic of good and bad, dystopia, utopia, right? Utopia, but it does push this idea of being hopeful. So we want the best for society when we're thinking about the future. It's good to be skeptical from a practical point of view, right? You want to rein it in, but skepticism is very good when you're doing this as well. Again, be hopeful, but everything isn't going to be rainbows and soprano voices from the heavens and doves ascending every day when we walk out of our front doors. Strategize, use foresight. I'm sorry, I'm going to skip ahead because you can read these as well as I can. And also very key is be flexible with the way that you think about the future. So those are some benefits that we can glean from using this approach to creative and innovative thinking. Sorry. Good.
All right, so that was a good overview. Thank you, Jamie, of futures thinking. And maybe it's clear by now, but you might also still be wondering, okay, so that's futures thinking, but why are we teaching it in the library? So for us, again, when we were tasked with the broad goal of teaching innovation and bringing methods of innovation to the campus community, futures thinking was something we found in a landscape survey that we were doing, and we were like, hey, this might really help us to reach this goal. So again, futures thinking helps to promote creativity and anticipate the many possible futures for students, for their discipline, for their society, and more. And in the libraries, as you know, we're often engaging with students in these one-off sessions, these shorter one-time engagements. We don't have a lot of time with them, so we really wanted to do something that would help to enhance their education, something that would be hopefully fun and unique and interesting for them, that would really help them to consider their studies and their role as a student, their role as a future contributor to their field a little bit differently than maybe they had been thinking of it up to now. So as you can see here are the learning objectives of our futures workshops. So they all have as a central tenet this objective to introduce futures thinking, what it is, what it isn't, how it can be applied. And something else we focus on is teaching students to identify signals of change. We have a whole workshop just on signals of change, but to describe it super briefly, these are really just glimpses of the future in the present. There are those things we see around us every day that indicate different possible futures. So for example, increasing adverse weather events, a heat wave, a wildfire, increasing wildfires that indicate, a future where climate change is going to be really impacting us. Those are signals of change. The recent spike in cyber attacks, that's a signal of change, a signal of a different type of future we could be headed for, right? So we help students begin to identify these signals of change, in particular, again, in relation to their own specific discipline, so that they can start to think through how they might either help contribute to the future that signal represents, or in the case of those examples I just gave, cyber attacks and climate change, how they might help mitigate some of the negative consequences of what these signals represent. And what we found really useful about this set of workshops is that these methods and tools and approaches work really well as sort of a la carte activities that we can put into whatever arrangement we would like and take into different classes or campus groups so far to a lot of success. So we've worked with courses in everything from applied ecology to history to women's and gender studies. And each time students always bring so much creativity and insight to the conversation. For example, I don't know a lot about applied ecology coming from a humanities background myself. So I was sort of nervous the first time we took one of these games into the applied ecology class. But the students were able to fill in all of the blanks for me. They had a lot to say about the future of biodiversity and infrastructure and all these things. And so what we did coming in and facilitating this game was just give them a new framework, a new way of thinking about these issues that they were already excited about, that they were already grappling with. And hopefully what they left with was some new way of thinking about it or engaging with it. But with that, I'm now going to introduce or let Calvin introduce you to some of the other tools and methods that we have used in this vein.
Thank you, Tori. So I'll just let you jump to the next slide, methods for interactive engagement. We have a few, we mostly like to just call them games. They could be activities, but they're games. We really enjoy them. This is the thing from the future, TFTF for short. If you want to visit that site, this is something that Tori is heading up and has turned into a website where it allows, it's just a very quick framework where students or whoever is taking a workshop can pull a card or two that will give them a situation, a future, a possible future, and a possible artifact that they can think about. And then they fill in the gaps from there. We've also started using it to move toward microfictions where people can build their own world in terms of what this looks like. So you might get two cards that say, you know, in the future, in 100 years, there is a tattoo connected to biology, and that's your prompt, and then you move from there. So yeah, it's been really enjoyable. We get a lot of engagement with it. Tori's pulling it up right here. Yeah, so here's what Tori's been working on very hard. So you can deal the cards, and then so excuse me, 100 years in the future, and there you go. You just click and it just deals and deals and deals. A headline, religion, theater. And then from there, we give them a prompt that they can use to consider the alternative future and just spend a little bit of time world building and thinking about what it might be like to live in a world in which these things happen. So yeah, let's go ahead and, the plotting exercise, we do this on Zoom because you can set it so that users will be able to add it. They can comment. If you go up to the view options at the top, you can annotate is the word that they use. So there's a few different icons that you can put on to the screen. So we'll pop this up. And as people, a lot of times after we just ask them, you know, what is a future you're interested in, the future of blank? We ask them to plot themselves in this spot, right? As how much power they have and as to whether the quote unquote problem is getting better or is getting worse. And as they do that, it allows us to, we had somebody put a giant X inside of the worse and no power box in one of our last presentations. It gives us both a chance to call people out, to ask them why they think this way and what maybe that, you know, how we can problem solve in ways that might add to their power or move things in a different direction. It's relatively quick and really enjoyable to kind of see how the forecasting, and you'll see in the colors, the gaming skills, action skills, simulation skills. There's a shout out to Napoleon Dynamite in there in wonderful ways that we love so much. So, and then one of the next ones, we'll jump to the next slide. And we're gonna spend the rest of our time, or at least until the end of when we kick it off for the next group. This is something we'd like to do with y'all. This is the game that we've really enjoyed, which we'll say borrowed from the Institute for the Future out in California. And it's aptly named 100 Ways Anything Could Be Different in the Future. So if you have the ability and the bandwidth, literal and figurative, to join us for this, it's just a 3-pronged activity / game that's kind of enjoyable. Let me put really quickly, there are 3 parts to it. Yep, there you go. Jamie's way ahead of me. So there's a link in there to a Padlet. If you haven't used Padlet, it's yet another way of organizing things on the internet. And as you go into that, you should see, there should be I'll just let it come up on that screen as we get there. The 3 parts of the game are already listed. So all together, we're going to do this thing we're going to start at number 1. So as you do this, so the way to do it, feel free to write things on your own and then to add them later, or feel free to just hit the little plus sign right under that first spot and respond to what it is. So what we're very imaginative, and we're talking about libraries with a bunch of people from libraries. So we're going to talk about libraries. Our topic is libraries. So first thing, all we're going to do is list things. We're trying to get to 100. Last time I checked, there were 23 of us. So if everybody does 4, we still won't be done, but we'll be close. So let's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead and click that. Just any fact that is true.
Want to eat dinner and then run errands? ?
And then we'll just go from there. So starting with that, things that you know to be true about the library, just list them. So looks like someone's horrible. Yeah, so title, you just put it right in the title. Libraries are great. And then we'll move into 2 and 3. Those are the next ones. But let's take, a couple of minutes, see if we can get close to 100. I'll spend time counting and making small talk. If it is easier, like I said, to just write on your own and add later, that's fine. You might have to chase that plus sign, but feel free to add in from there and we'll go from there. So hit the plus sign and let's see if all together we can come up with 100 things that are true about libraries right now. Whoever wrote libraries had books is the best. That's always mine. So we'll say for about, we'll give ourselves 5 minutes or 100 things, whichever comes first. And then, got it. We've got another 15 minutes. Thanks for the reminder, Tori. I just moved to Scotland, so I'm 5 hours ahead. I don't know what time it is anywhere. So that's very helpful. We have about 15 minutes we'll spend. This is the meat and potatoes. Number 3 is, can take as much time as we want, but I'll be quiet for 10 seconds, which is about as long as I can do it. And then we'll say some more. That felt like 10 seconds. Things are looking really great. Some of these that are already up, I can already tell. We kind of get a feel now for what are going to be interesting, and y'all are on it. Libraries are no longer quiet. I feel like that's one of those conversations we need to have. Everybody who has an opinion on it, put them in a football stadium and see whether that's good or bad. I've heard both sides. We're doing well. I'm not counting yet. Tori, Jamie, either y'all counting yet? Okay, good. We have more than 2, so we're nailing it. We've done this workshop in workshops with people anywhere from 1 person to 23 is pretty good for us. We've got a couple that have been maybe a little larger because they're full of undergrads, but y'all are doing great. If you can't think of any more, don't worry. If you haven't done any and you have anxiety, don't worry about it. It's just for fun. Libraries have budgets. Libraries are overworked. Preach. Free Wi-Fi access. Undervalued. More preach. Pesky academic libraries. Hogging all the stuff, right? These are great. Well done. A good place to sleep. No comment. We'll neither confirm nor deny whether any of us have slept in the library. Yeah, we're doing great. Okay. I got to refresh mine to even keep up with y'all. This is doing great. Be extra quiet while I count. I know we're over 20. I think we're over 30. 100 is a lot, especially if you read them and someone stole yours. It's okay if they're repetitive. Like, don't worry about what's on there too. Just throw them up there. Libraries are musty was number 39. Looking at time, we'll give everybody a little more time to rack their brains. Oh yeah, now we're just going. Nice. Libraries have chairs. Whoever put that one up, I love it. I've always been interested since I started the program that we're in, the CRDM program. Yeah, thanks for taking that, Jamie. If you're wanting to add a comment on there, just there should be a plus sign at the bottom of the column. We got about 90 more seconds. I'll keep blabbing about chairs. I feel like as I walked into the NC State DH Hill Library, I saw in like my walk through the first hallway more types of chairs than I had ever seen in any place in my life. Got those there. Great. So if you think of any more, feel free to throw them on there. I'll take another 30 seconds and finish up a thought. Feel free to piggyback off of something else that was already there. No worries, these are great. Issues with mildew and musty. We're getting there. Perfect. Okay. I think we got to have broken 50 by now, which is awesome. So let's, yeah, like I said, as you're finishing up, feel free, take a minute or two. If you think of others as we go, feel free to add them. Number one stays open while we go to number two. So part two of the 100 things is we just take those facts and we write the opposite of them. So for Tori, who gave us libraries are great, Tori's would jump on and write libraries are not great, or libraries are terrible. Choose your own adjective. We go from there. So we're just going to make this the what do they call it on Stranger Things? I can't remember. We're going to, the upside down. We're going to make the upside down all these. Yep, there you go. So just find them. If you find one that you like, if you know which ones you put up, feel free to change those there. If not, pick some randoms. Totally okay if these don't line up in terms of how many there are, because we spent too much time looking there. But this one's generally faster because you're just upside downing it. So yeah, feel free to add those. I'll spend a little time cross-checking to see if anything's been missed, and I will most likely miss things as I do so. Coming in hot. So if you were writing, we'll just say again, part two is just to flip the fact and state the opposite of it. Libraries no longer have books. They no longer have budgets. They no longer have mildew nor must. Not free. Yeah, we're getting there. Jamie said we don't talk about dystopia. We try not to. But sometimes in the opposite list, we get pretty close. Although those pesky academic libraries are going to stop hogging all their stuff soon. And who knows what's going to happen. All right, let's take another. Yeah, they're coming right in. Just keep on going. Usually I just gauge this based on how big the scroll bar on the right side is. Y'all are particularly good at this. You must have thoughts and feelings about libraries, which means we're all in the right place. Thanks for all the scrolling, Tori. Sorry if we quickened your path to carpal tunnel syndrome as we move through number 2. It's always interesting to see how the upside down facts, the flipped facts, start to be really interestingly related to each other in ways that section 1 is not as much. As we flip things, it's the categorization, to use another library word, is really interesting. This is great. Let's take we'll just take another minute. If you've flipped a few facts, take it easy. If you haven't flipped one, choose one you haven't seen yet or that you think is interesting. Flip it. We'll get them on there. And if nothing else, just read through the list and see what's changed in the future. For this activity, we don't generally give, as far as I remember, Tori and Jamie, reprimand me if I'm wrong. We don't generally give a future date or number. We don't say 10 or 100 or a bajillion years. So this could be, overnight. That adds a parameter we don't usually do with this particular one. But if you had one in mind, number 3 will be interesting as well. So we'll get there. Yep, I see people are jumping on there. I love it. Yeah, sad, right? So for number 3, imagine that world, right? So read through list 2 and imagine living in the place where these facts are now true. We put 2 questions up there, right? Why did this change happen? What's it like to live in this future? So somebody's right there. So those are great. So these can be as long or as short as you would like, right? Sad is great. And then looks like somebody's writing, libraries are now overvalued. So what does that look like? In what ways are they overvalued? How much? So kind of fill in the gaps in ways that let your mind wander and just see what's there. And they don't have to be tied specifically to any one flipped fact as well. If you have a sense of what's on the list and what's changed, just go there. So why this change happened as opposed to how this change happened, we always think is interesting. But if you want to give an alternate historical future, that's great as well. And Elon Musk, there he is. Gotta have him. We can't get rid of Elon Musk. So again, no worries on details, no worries on, it doesn't need to be super long. Just how would you feel if these things were there? How might we have gotten there? What are, 1 or 2 or 25 chain reactions that happened? Or, right, what is the result? What has changed in people's lives, in your life, at the universities? Just what does that future look like? What does it feel like? How did it happen? We always love the SpongeBob imagination meme. So if you're a SpongeBob fan, it's time to use that imagination. And we'll let you go ahead and finish that up as we have just a couple more minutes left. We're happy to answer questions if anybody has any, but more so than that, feel free to contact us if you'd like. More than that, if anybody is interested in sharing just a verbal version of this, whether it's written down or not, what that world might have looked like, and maybe why you gravitated to that particular fact. We'd love to hear from you if you have 30 to 90 seconds of stuff to share with us. The floor is open if you'd like, just unmute and hopefully only one of us go to time. Tori, as you're scrolling, if you find one, we want to highlight it, we can do that too.
Well, I do love the first one. Libraries are overvalued due to funding issues. Libraries are privatized, leading to Elon Musk buying the stock. As an IPO, it enters 200% above valuation. Yeah. That's the spirit of the activity. That from there, we would ask questions about, is this a future we want to see happen? Is this a future we don't want to see happen? What happens in between? Either way, you can start to build out these things in column 3 from there, and they can really turn into interesting discussions.
Sure. And I like that Elon Musk is the one buying them, so he's still alive. So he's either mechanized himself entirely, or it's in the near enough future that he hasn't burned all of his money trying to get to Mars. So,
but we're right at time. I shared the link to our website in the chat, and Jamie also shared our contact information. So please feel free to reach out to us outside of this with any questions you might have about any of it, or ideas you might have for potential collaborations.
We still have about a minute left if anyone has any questions for our presenters. I want to say thank you so much. This was fantastic and a great way to end our final formal session of the workshop. We have a fun networking session coming up right after this, so a great way to kick it off. And I can imagine this being so much fun with students, but I may bring this to my next dinner party because this is a lot of fun. Thank you so much for sharing.
thank y'all.
Thank you for having us.
All right, everyone. Well, we will get kicked off into our next networking session. We can't wait to see you all there and finish out our day. Thanks again, Tori, Calvin, and Jamie.
Thank you. See y'all.